This video will introduce workflow in Sharepoint Server 2013. Let's recap quickly how workflow worked in the previous version of SharePoint. In Sharepoint Server 2010, the workflow engine installed automatically when SharePoint was installed. There wasn't anything in particular you needed to do. Also, since SharePoint stores all of its content and configuration data in SQL Server databases, the workflow information was stored there as well. Now let's take a look at SharePoint Server 2013. The first thing to point out is that the same workflow engine that was part of SharePoint Server 2010 is still available in SharePoint Server 2013. It installs automatically when you install SharePoint, just like it did in the previous version. The important thing to keep in mind here is that nothing has changed. All of the workflows you develop for SharePoint Server 2010 will still work with SharePoint Server 2013. What's new is a product called Workflow Manager. Workflow Manager does not automatically install when you install SharePoint. You must download and install it separately. Workflow Manager is designed to scale separately from SharePoint and thus includes its own content and configuration databases. Workflow Manager relies on a component called Service Bus, and Service Bus also includes its own SQL Server databases as well. Once you have Workflow Manager up and running, you configure it to work with the SharePoint Server 2013 farm, and they communicate using TCP/IP or name pipes. As you have seen, SharePoint Server 2013 has two different workflow platforms. The first is a legacy workflow engine that shipped with SharePoint Server 2010, and the second is a new platform that is made available by Workflow Manager. We call the first platform the SharePoint Server 2010 Workflow Platform, and we call the second platform the SharePoint Server 2013 Workflow Platform. These two workflow platforms show up in SharePoint Designer 2013 when a new workflow is created. There is now an option to select the platform type in the Workflow Creation dialog. You should take note that if you haven't yet installed and configured Workflow Manager, then you will not see the 2013 Workflow Platform in the drop-down menu. The 2013 Workflow option only becomes available after Workflow Manager has been installed and configured to work with the SharePoint 2013 farm. Having two different workflow platforms seems confusing, so the next logical question is, why are there two different platforms? Workflow Manager was built for high-density multi-tenancy environments and lets you scale workflow independently of SharePoint. This is great for scalability, but the new platform lacks the deep integration with the SharePoint object model that was provided when workflow was baked right into SharePoint. Therefore, the 2010 platform is still needed for backwards compatibility and also for situations where the workflow actions you need are not available in the new 2013 platform. The 2013 workflow platform includes special actions called coordination actions that can be used to kick off a workflow built on the 2010 platform. In this way, you can write a workflow that uses both platforms. Workflow was recognized as playing a central role in organizations, and spinning it off into its own product allows it to play a bigger role than just a part of SharePoint. SharePoint is the first customer of Workflow Manager, but others will follow. You can imagine scenarios where an organization has multiple applications and multiple workflow scenarios. Workflow Manager can sit in the middle and orchestrate these workflows without being tied directly to SharePoint. And that concludes this video. To learn more about workflow, check out the Workflow Resource Center on TechNet.